And Jesus gave us examples of how to live. Even before he died, he said, look, these are the things that you have to do. These are the important things. I'm going to Luke chapter 10. And in Luke chapter 10, somebody comes to Jesus and they're trying to trip him up. They're trying to ask him a question that'll get him to say something that'll get him in trouble. And who is it that tries to do this? A lawyer. Behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tested him, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus said to him, what is written in the law? What is your reading of it? So he answered and said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. Okay. At another point, Jesus sums this up and he says the same thing. What do I have to do to inherit eternal life? Love God with everything you have, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. Love God. And love your neighbor as yourself. Now, this is a gut check moment here. Think about the people sitting next to you. Do you care about them at all? Okay, that's kind of a rhetorical question where you're not meant to actually speak the answer aloud. But some of you are, if you're being honest, the answer is no. I don't care about these people at all. And you know, you probably don't know them. And could really care less about what happens to them. But Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? And the lawyer, trying to trip him up, says, well, who's my neighbor? Is it this kid who's sitting next to me, like, I don't even know his name? Is it the guy who actually lives next door to me who I never see? Is it the guy across the street who lets his kids, like, run around and like, let them play with their dog in my yard so I have, like, dog treats in my yard all the time? Is that my neighbor? Okay? And so Jesus continues. And he says, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothes, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he had arrived at the place, came and looked, and passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came by where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. So he went and bandaged his wounds, pouring out olive oil and wine, and set him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, which is a huge amount of money, gave it to the innkeeper, and said, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. So Jesus says, which of these 3 was a neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And the lawyer said, he who showed mercy on him. And Jesus said, go thou and do likewise. Okay, now we don't really get the whole Samaritan thing. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us. It's just a name. It's like the Moabites or the Amalekites or the Amalekites or any other ites. We don't get who they are. But let's put it like this, okay? In the days following World War II, there was a man who had been part of the Nazi Party who was trying to escape. And as he was traveling through the mountains, he got hit by a bunch of raiders, and they robbed him, they stripped him, they beat him, and they left him for dead. And so, shortly thereafter, there was a priest who was also traveling through the mountains who saw him. And the priest knew this guy was a Nazi, and knew that at that point everybody hated the Nazis, and being affiliated with them all was dangerous. Okay? And so the priest leaves him. Then there was an American soldier. The American soldier saw him, recognized him, and likewise said, I don't have anything to do with this guy. This man is evil, and I don't want to have anything to do with him. And he left him. And then, as the man is almost breathing his last breath, as he's dying here in a ditch in the mountains, on the side of the road, there comes a Jew. And the Jew has seen half his family exterminated by the Nazis. And he's seen them, horrible, horrible things happen. You know what happened in the concentration camps. This guy had been there and had managed to escape. And he saw this man and he recognized him. He knew he was a Nazi. But he picked him up. And he carried him into town and he nursed him back into health. And with what money he had, he gave to the innkeeper and said, take care of this man. That's the kind of parable that Jesus was telling. The Samaritans hated the Jews. The Samaritans had been Jewish people who had been captured by the Assyrians. They were taken off into exile, and when they came back with this half Assyrian, half Jewish religion. And they hated the Israelites because the Israelites thought they were all, pure. And the Israelites hated the Samaritans because the Samaritans had perverted their religion. So they both hated each other. And so when the Samaritan is lying there on the road and the Jew sees him, he sees what is basically one of his worst enemies laying there, and he picks him up. He carries him back and he takes care of him, heals him, brings him back to the house at great personal expense. Which one loved his neighbor? The priest, the Levite, or the Jew? Which one? The Samaritan. Who took care of him? The Samaritan. Who loved his neighbor? The Samaritan. You may not know the person sitting next to you at all. You may be an 11th grader, and the person next to you is a 7th or 6th grader, and you may not have any interaction with them at all. But that is your neighbor. That is the person who God calls you to love as you love yourself. Better yet, the person sitting next to you, maybe somebody that's in your grade, in your class, sits next to you all the time, and you can't stand them. Look, I was in high school, I was in middle school, I remember I had a fight like Mr. Halstead had. There was this itty-bitty little guy. I mean, he was tiny. He was my age, he was in my grade, he was like this tall and like beanpole. It was bad. And he had just broken up with this girl. Actually, she broke up with him. Never mind that. But we had dated years before, and after a bad breakup, we had finally gotten to the point where we could talk again. And it happened that we were all sitting in the same area in a history class, and she said something, and he was sitting right next to me, and she was behind me, and I leaned back and made a joke, and she laughed, and we were having a good time, and this guy, he just hauls off and kicks me as hard as he can. Wow. But the funny thing is, not being the most athletic individual in the world, he hits me, or hits my desk, and it's one of those big metal desks that you can like slide your books on this side, and there's like a metal plate over here. So he hits the metal plate. And I don't really know what's going on. I just feel this like thump and hear this boom. And I look over at him and he has the strangest look on his face. It's like seething rage. But it couldn't be seething rage because why would he be upset? So I just look, he's making a funny face. I'm just kind of looking at him and I go, I don't realize the guy who's just tried to take me out at the knees. And so, of course, he's so angry, he like storms out of class, which confuses me all more because nobody told me he was trying to kick me. Anyway, so I'm walking out in the hallway a couple hours later, and he comes running up to me and he hits me. And I swear it was like, and I just kind of looked down, looked back up at him, and was like, really? And I took a step towards him. And he took 2 steps back, and he swung his leg up in this huge roundhouse kick. And I was like, oh, please, God, let me catch his leg. I missed. But he ran off after that. For weeks, I thought about, oh, how much fun I would have if I would have caught his ankle. Oh, anyway, it would have been absolutely a sin. Anyway, so my life continues as normal until this guy shows up, and we're walking down the hallway, and I'm talking with some friends of mine, and he comes up, and he's got a calculus book, because he was a true nerd. He's got a calculus book. And he comes running up at me, and I'm like, oh. And he swings the calculus book, grinding first, and hits me right here. Like, spins me around, because it's a calculus book. Spins me around, I am like facing the other way, eyes blurry, all that kind of thing. There was a moment where I'm not really sure what happened, but the next thing I know, I've got like two friends that are like laying into me like this, and I'm reaching over them and I'm grabbing for the guy, and these people are holding me back, and the only thing I said to the guy was, I'm going to tear you in half. And he turned and ran away. It was a true look or smash moment. But I didn't go to a school like Mr. Halstead. My graduating class was only 300, so everybody knew everybody else, and this caused kind of a scene. So we got called down there, and the principal was like, I don't care. I don't care who started it. I don't care why it happened. I don't care what girl's involved. I don't care. If I see you two in my office again, you're being suspended for a week. And by the way, at my school, if you were suspended, you couldn't make up that work. You got a 0 for it. If you got a test, you got a 0 for it. If an essay was due, you got a 0 on it. There was no making it up. Your grade was just all gone. And so we like never saw each other again until after graduation, because neither one of us was going to be getting in any kind of trouble with each other again. But this guy was like my classmate. I was in all of my classes with him, and I couldn't have cared less what happened to him. And you know, a lot of us get into a point in our lives, and I told my wife this, I keep really small circles. I have like a couple of friends here, and I have friends at church, and I have one friend that I don't work with or go to church with, and that's about it. And there are people I keep up on Facebook and all that, but my wife will tell me a story about this person, and I'm like, okay. I don't know these people. I don't relate to them. I don't have anything to do with them. And a real temptation for me is to go, why do I care? But they're my neighbors. Maybe not literally, but according to what Jesus tells us in the parable of the Good Samaritan, somebody that you encounter who's in pain is your neighbor.